The air around you seems ordinary, yet every moment hums with quiet meaning. Somewhere inside that noise of daily life, a signal is calling. It whispers through small coincidences, through the weight of silence at night, through the ache that reminds you there must be more than routine. You feel it when you pause long enough to listen, the invitation to wake up, to look again, to realize that life has always been waiting for you to notice it fully. This is the call that many people ignore until it fades into habit, but you are hearing it now. The phrase that echoes, "Chosen one, pay attention before it's too late," is not about privilege. It's about readiness. It is a symbol of anyone who feels the pulse of something greater, urging them to remember who they are. Before we continue, take a moment to set your intention. This is the chapter of the journey that speaks about wishes, about the energy of desire when it is shaped by love rather than fear. If you stay until the end, write your warmest wish in the comments along with the number 66. Let that small act become a spark in the current of shared focus. When many hearts release kind thoughts at once, the universe becomes charged with motion. It is not magic in the old sense. It is resonance, the gentle physics of attention. You are part of that field now. Every good wish you write adds warmth to the unseen network that connects us all. Chosen one, your destiny awaits. Click the hype button, like this video, subscribe, and walk with us into the light. The message of awakening begins when you stop assuming that everything you see is all there is. Look at your hands, your breath, the rhythm of your heartbeat. Each is a pattern that the universe shaped to carry awareness. Yet awareness often forgets itself, trapped in loops of fear or distraction. The words "pay attention" are a lifeline thrown into that forgetting. They remind you that noticing is a sacred act. Every time you notice, you reclaim a piece of your power. You start to see how the smallest decisions ripple outward. The tone of your voice, the thought before you speak, the choice to forgive instead of react. Attention transforms these details into instruments of creation. The late hours of life are not measured by clocks, but by the depth of understanding we have reached. Before it's too late does not mean doom, it means opportunity. There is still time to remember that the world within you shapes the world around you. When you move through a day half asleep, the universe mirrors confusion. When you awaken and look with clear eyes, the same universe begins to arrange itself differently, responding to your clarity. This is how subtle power works, not through control, but through coherence. The clearer you become, the more reality organizes itself around that clarity. Most people live inside stories they did not write. They inherit fear, expectation, and distraction, mistaking them for destiny. To awaken is to take back authorship. It is to realize that every thought is a brushstroke on the canvas of experience. The phrase "learn this before it's too late" is not a warning from outside. It is a reminder from your deeper self, urging you to study the language of creation that has been speaking through you all along. When you understand that language, your world changes, not because it obeys you, but because you finally cooperate with it. You may feel resistance. Awakening often begins with discomfort, because awareness exposes what was hidden. You will see your habits, your fears, your contradictions. Do not turn away. Each one is a doorway back to balance. The light that enters through cracks does not destroy the wall. It reveals the space beyond. Pay attention to that light. It is patient, waiting behind every experience, asking only that you notice. When you walk outside and the wind touches your face, that is the same breath that moves through forests and oceans. When you look at another person's eyes, you meet the mirror of consciousness itself. These are not poetic decorations. They are reminders of connection. Separation is the illusion that keeps the world restless. The invitation of this message is to dissolve that illusion by seeing unity everywhere you look. The moment you do, compassion becomes instinct, and fear loses its anchor. Time moves differently once you begin to live awake. Minutes stretch because they are filled with presence. The world seems to speak in symbols, numbers that repeat, faces that appear at just the right instant, dreams that answer questions you didn't know you asked. These are not accidents. They are reflections of your new dialogue with existence. The more you respond with gratitude instead of suspicion, the clearer the conversation becomes. You start to recognize guidance not as commands, but as gentle nudges toward harmony. Awakening does not demand that you renounce ordinary life. It asks only that you live it consciously. Eat, walk, work, love, but do so with awareness. When you bring awareness into the ordinary becomes sacred. That is the essence of paying attention, to see the divine not above the world, but within it. Each sound, each texture, each encounter is a verse in the poem of being. When you listen deeply enough, even silence becomes eloquent. The journey from sleep to awareness is not linear. Some days you will feel illuminated. Others you will stumble through fog. This is natural. The key is persistence. Each time you return to presence, you strengthen the thread that connects you to the source of understanding. Over time, that thread becomes a lifeline, then a bridge, then a homecoming. And when you look back, you will realize that the call to learn before it's too late was never about fear of ending. It was about the beginning you had yet to claim. When the first glimpse of awakening settles into your bones, life does not suddenly become easy. In fact, many people feel a quiet turbulence after that initial clarity. Old patterns begin to tremble, relationships shift, and the familiar comfort of distraction loses its sweetness. This is the point where attention becomes a discipline rather than a discovery. You start to understand that awareness is not a single event, but a practice that renews itself with every breath. Paying attention means staying present even when the moment hurts, even when it confuses you. The mind will try to run back to routine, but each time you return to the stillness within, you strengthen the light that guided you here. Every day now becomes an invitation to look again. Morning light through a window is no longer background. It is a teacher reminding you that illumination is constant. The sound of footsteps in the street becomes a rhythm of shared existence. You realize that everything you notice becomes a part of you. The more tenderly you observe, the more gently the world responds. That is why attention is sacred. It is participation. It is the quiet merging of seer and seen. When you give your awareness fully to what is before you, the boundary between inner and outer begins to dissolve, and you feel the pulse of life moving through all things. As this understanding deepens, you may feel the weight of collective noise, news, argument, the endless current of digital voices. Paying attention does not mean absorbing all of it. It means choosing consciously what to let in. You learn to guard your focus as you would guard fire in the wind. Awareness grows in silence and intention. When you turn away from chaos and listen to the space within, that space answers. It reminds you that clarity was never lost, only hidden beneath the layers of distraction. Protecting your awareness is not withdrawal from the world. It is how you bring something clear back to it. You might begin to notice how your thoughts create subtle weather around you. A single judgment can cloud the room. A single moment of gratitude can lift the air. This is not imagination. It is sensitivity awakening. The universe mirrors attention. When you dwell on fear, it multiplies. When you dwell on possibility, paths appear where walls once stood. The more you observe this pattern, the more careful you become with your inner language. Every sentence you whisper inside yourself shapes the texture of tomorrow. To learn before it's too late is to learn this. Consciousness is creative, and creation begins long before action. At times, the process feels like unlearning more than learning. You begin to see how many beliefs were borrowed. You start to notice how much of your behavior was imitation, how often you reached for approval instead of truth. Awakening strips away these disguises one by one. It can feel like loss, but underneath every surrender is the discovery of authenticity. When you stop performing for the world, your energy aligns with what is real. You become transparent, and through that transparency, a quiet strength emerges. The universe recognizes honesty. It resonates with it. In this stage, patience becomes a new form of intelligence. Growth cannot be forced. You can only tend to the soil of awareness, rest, honesty, gratitude, and let insight bloom in its season. The temptation to hurry, to measure progress, to demand results is the mind's last defense against surrender. But awakening happens in its own rhythm. It unfolds not in dramatic visions, but in the slow, steady refinement of perception. One morning you realize that what once irritated you now moves through you without friction. You forgive more easily, listen more deeply, and see beauty where there used to be boredom. That is how light anchors itself in the ordinary. The phrase "before it's too late" takes on a softer meaning here. It is not about catastrophe. It is about the preciousness of time. Awareness reminds you that every day unlived in presence is a day that cannot be repeated. Life asks you to participate fully now, not after you've solved everything. The future does not need you half awake, preparing endlessly for clarity. It needs you alert in this very breath, meeting the moment with unguarded eyes. When you live that way, urgency transforms into devotion. Each task becomes an offering to the mystery that keeps you alive. You begin to see how even pain serves awakening. Suffering, when met with awareness, loses its poison. It becomes information, a signal showing where attention is needed. The heart that refuses to feel remains blind. The heart that feels completely becomes wise. So do not rush to escape discomfort. Hold it gently, observe its movement, and you will watch it change form. Pain that is witnessed dissolves into understanding. Understanding opens compassion, and compassion becomes the bridge between your world and everyone else's. Eventually, the journey brings you to stillness again. But this stillness is different from the one you knew before. It is no longer fragile. It has depth and texture. You realize that silence is not the absence of life, but the presence of it in its purest state. Within that silence, the phrase that started everything, "Pay attention," continues to echo. But now it feels less like a command and more like a rhythm of being. It becomes the heartbeat of awareness itself, reminding you that to live is to notice, and to notice is to love. The next stage of awakening arrives quietly. There is no single event to mark it. Only the gradual realization that you no longer move through life as a guest, but as a participant. The world does not feel like a backdrop to your personal story. It feels like a living presence walking beside you. Each moment becomes a conversation between your attention and what unfolds before it. You begin to understand that life listens as much as it speaks. The quality of what it offers depends on the depth of how you listen. At this point, awareness starts to express itself through action. Insight that once stayed inside begins to shape behavior. You notice how your choices ripple through other lives, and you begin to act from a quieter intelligence rather than from habit. You respond instead of reacting. You pause before you speak, not from restraint, but from respect for the energy that words carry. A single phrase can heal or wound, open or close. When you see that clearly, kindness stops being a virtue and becomes a form of accuracy. It is simply the correct use of power. Attention also changes your sense of time. You stop chasing the future as if it were somewhere else. You realize that preparation and fulfillment occur in the same instant, because the present is both the seed and the harvest. You discover efficiency not by doing more, but by being fully where you are. That shift feels small, yet it alters everything. Stress loses its edge because you are no longer trying to occupy two moments at once. You inhabit this one completely, and paradoxically, that fullness makes you capable of more than effort ever did. As your perception expands, so does your compassion. You begin to see that everyone is walking through layers of forgetting and remembering, just as you are. Judgment dissolves when you recognize the same struggle in another's eyes. You stop demanding perfection from people and start offering understanding instead. That understanding does not mean passivity. It means seeing beyond behavior to the hunger that drives it. Compassion is not sentimental. It is clear sight combined with an open heart. It does not excuse harm, but it knows that healing comes from connection, not condemnation. Awakening also asks for humility. The more you see, the more you realize how vast the unknown remains. Every truth opens into a larger mystery. Instead of certainty, you learn reverence. You no longer need to defend ideas or prove your growth. You simply live it. This humility becomes freedom. When you stop pretending to know everything, curiosity returns, and with it, wonder. The ordinary once again glows with significance. A cup of water, a stranger's smile, the sound of wind through trees. Each detail becomes a teacher when approached with humility. There will still be days of forgetting. You will lose your center, get caught in old patterns, and believe the noise again. But now you have a memory of silence inside you. You know how to return. Every time you fall back into distraction and then wake up again, the cycle strengthens your understanding. The distance between forgetting and remembering grows shorter. You realize that awakening is not a straight path upward, but a spiral that revisits the same lessons at deeper levels each time. In these cycles, gratitude becomes your compass. You start to thank the moment before judging it. Gratitude breaks the spell of fear and turns experience into cooperation. Even when events seem harsh, gratitude keeps you aligned with learning instead of resistance. It reminds you that every situation carries a message for the attentive. When you meet life with appreciation, it becomes generous. It begins to reveal possibilities hidden beneath appearances. The phrase "learn this before it's too late" now feels like a gentle encouragement to keep cultivating this state. It tells you that awareness must be tended like a flame. It can brighten or dim depending on care. Attention is the oxygen of that flame. The more you notice with love, the steadier the light becomes. In this light, You start to perceive guidance not as an external voice, but as intuition, the subtle knowing that rises from alignment. You no longer ask for signs, you become one. Eventually, you discover that paying attention is another word for prayer. Not the recitation of formulas, but the direct meeting of consciousness with existence. Every breath becomes an offering, every gesture a form of communication with the whole. You realize that the universe does not need worship, it needs participation. To live awake is to collaborate with creation, to become an artisan of meaning through simple presence. As this integration deepens, peace no longer depends on circumstances. It lives underneath them, steady as the tide beneath the waves. You carry it into crowded streets, into conversations, into solitude. It becomes the background music of awareness, always playing even when the surface is loud. This peace does not make you passive, it gives you strength. From it, you act with clarity instead of urgency, conviction instead of impulse. You begin to see that the true work of awakening is not escape from the world, but transformation within it. That is how the journey continues, not through grand declarations, but through the quiet persistence of presence. Each day you return to attention. Each day you remember that the miracle is not far away. It is happening now in the pulse of your own awareness. And with each return, the call that began this journey, pay attention before it's too late, becomes less of a warning and more of a song, guiding you forward with patience and light. As the path unfolds further, you begin to sense that awareness is not something you practice anymore. It practices you. It shapes your days quietly, rearranging your priorities from within. What once felt urgent begins to lose its grip, and what once seemed small now reveals hidden importance. You realize that the meaning of life was never buried in distant achievements, but scattered in plain sight, waiting for the eyes that could finally see. The deeper you look, the simpler it becomes. To live awake is to live truthfully, moment by moment, without pretending to be anywhere else. This stage feels less like learning and more like remembering. You start to recall an old familiarity with peace, as though you are returning to something you have always known. Even in confusion, you sense a subtle thread of clarity running beneath the noise. You learn to trust that thread. It carries you through uncertainty, guiding you toward choices that feel aligned rather than forced. You stop chasing outcomes and begin cultivating integrity. The question shifts from what will happen to who am I being while it happens. This single shift transforms experience from performance to presence. You will notice, too, that people respond differently to you now. Some feel drawn to your calm. Others feel unsettled by it. Awakening changes the atmosphere around you, and not everyone is ready to breathe that air. This is not rejection, it is resonance. Every person vibrates at their own rhythm of readiness. Your task is not to convince anyone, but to embody clarity so fully that it speaks for itself. Authentic presence invites without demanding. It allows others to awaken at their own pace, just as you were once allowed. At this point, solitude begins to feel less like loneliness and more like communion. When you sit in stillness, you do not feel isolated. You feel surrounded by the vastness that sustains everything. The silence that used to feel empty now hums with life. It is here that you discover the difference between being alone and being in union with existence. In this quiet, inspiration flows not as random ideas, but as guidance from a deeper intelligence. The more you listen, the more you realize that every creative impulse, every act of love, art, or insight is the universe expressing itself through you. This awareness transforms how you handle difficulty. Challenges no longer appear as punishments, but as invitations. Each one asks a single question. Will you respond with fear or with presence? When you choose presence, even pain becomes fertile. It teaches patience, humility, and courage. You stop trying to escape discomfort and begin to read it, as if it were a language written in sensation. Every emotion, even the heavy ones, carries information about balance. To feel deeply without drowning is the art of maturity. It is how wisdom grows roots. As awakening stabilizes, your relationship with time changes again. You begin to see patterns repeating not to trap you, but to refine you. The same lessons return with subtler details each time, like waves polishing the same stone. You realize that growth is cyclical, not linear. This understanding removes the pressure to be perfect. You no longer measure yourself by progress alone, but by depth of sincerity. How honestly can you meet this moment? How fully can you allow life to be what it is, without forcing it into your expectations? The more you practice this surrender, the more freedom you discover in ordinary moments. Your perception of energy also becomes clearer. You start to sense how places, conversations, and intentions carry vibration. You walk into a room and feel the residue of emotions left behind. And instead of judging them, you learn to cleanse them with awareness. Your presence becomes like light entering a dim space, quiet, steady, transformative. You no longer need to announce your peace. You emanate it. This is not a performance, but a natural consequence of alignment. True stillness does not withdraw from the world. It influences it silently. Gradually, life stops being divided into spiritual and ordinary. Washing dishes, talking to a stranger, waiting in line, all of it becomes part of the same sacred rhythm. You realize that awakening was never about escaping reality, but about inhabiting it completely. When you are present, even the simplest acts carry grace. You do not need ceremonies or special conditions. You only need awareness. That awareness turns everything into an altar, every action into an offering, every breath into participation in something vast and benevolent. You might begin to sense a quiet confidence emerging, a trust that you are exactly where you need to be. This trust does not come from external security, but from alignment with truth. You realize that no matter what unfolds, awareness can meet it. The storms outside may continue, but inside there is an anchor that cannot be uprooted. That anchor is attention itself, grounded in understanding. You no longer ask for guarantees, you cultivate readiness. Whatever comes, you will meet it awake. Eventually, you understand that the phrase "before it's too late" is not about time running out, but about time finally being seen for what it is, a fragile, beautiful medium through which awareness experiences itself. Every sunrise, every breath, every meeting is a reminder that the chance to live consciously is temporary but precious. The urgency is not to rush, but to awaken fully while the opportunity exists. That is what too late really means, to have lived surrounded by miracles without ever noticing them. Paying attention is how you redeem that loss before it happens. The deeper you live this truth, the gentler your presence becomes. You stop fighting to be understood and start listening to understanding itself. You speak less, but when you do, your words carry weight because they come from stillness. You stop trying to fix the world and instead begin to see that awareness itself is the repair. Wherever consciousness awakens, healing follows naturally. You no longer see yourself as separate from that healing. You are its expression. And so the journey continues quietly, not toward some distant goal, but into ever-deepening intimacy with life itself. The same message keeps echoing, softer now, almost like a lullaby for the soul. Pay attention, stay awake, remember the gift of this moment. Every breath carries that teaching forward, and with each breath, you step further into the luminous simplicity of being. By now, attention has become more than a skill. It has become your natural way of being. You no longer strain to stay aware. Awareness flows through you like breathing. Life begins to unfold with a quiet symmetry that feels both mysterious and intimate. You start to notice how effortlessly events align when you move without resistance. Coincidences multiply, not because you are manipulating outcomes, but because you are finally synchronized with the rhythm of reality. What once felt random now feels deliberate. You begin to sense that everything has always been connected. You simply had not tuned your heart to hear it. In this space of attunement, a new kind of responsibility arises. Not the heavy burden of duty, but the luminous responsibility of consciousness itself. You realize that every choice ripples outward, shaping the field of experience for others as well as for yourself. Small acts matter more than you imagined. The way you greet someone, the patience you extend, the care you bring to ordinary moments. These are not background details, but essential notes in the song of existence. When you act with awareness, you become part of the world's healing rather than its confusion. And this is how awakening begins to live through you, not as grand gestures, but as quiet constancy. Awareness becomes the thread that weaves grace into the fabric of your days. You start to see that every moment, however small, is an invitation to add clarity to the collective song. Each breath, each word, each act of attention becomes a way of mending the world, one heartbeat at a time.